Clannad After Story's ending was not good. I say this as a big fan of the series, and after many tears of mine have been shed even for that very ending. Much like the first half of Clannad, After Story suffers from attempting to adapt a game with different routes and endings. In the first half of Clannad, this led to a poorly paced narrative which jumped to focusing on different girls who each took their few episodes as the romantic lead before being mostly forgotten to the canonical duo of Tomoya and Nagisa. In After Story, it led to a video game-esque collect all the orbs for the secret ending type of narrative which fixes everything through magical intervention. It can and has been argued that the ending makes logical sense in the universe and is foreshadowed somewhat in the show itself. It is also undeniable that the ending is emotionally cathartic, and it feels good to see these characters that have been through so much be rewarded and reunited. However, these things can all be true without the ending being good or thematically consistent. If we look at some of the themes of After Story specifically, we see that we have an exploration of grief and difficulty in overcoming a profound grief and eventually healing. There is also the tension of moving on while still honouring the past, and finally, whether happiness after such a profound tragedy is still possible. In this video, I want to offer the idea of a better ending, one that doesn't use any magic beyond the power of friendship to resolve the narrative while keeping with its themes, maybe even improving on them and changing as little as necessary. Let's begin this discussion with what I'll call the pre-death arc, before Nagisa dies, just after the birth of Ushio. For the purposes of this discussion, I will leave the first half of Clannad Season 1 untouched. As I hinted in the introduction, there are improvements that could be made here, but they are better left to their own discussion and potentially their own future video. Continuing on from this, the entirety of After Story leading up to Nagisa's death can be left unchanged. It works well to tie off some of the loose ends from the first half of the series and sets the stage for the emotional shift of the rest of the show. The next phase can be called the post-death pre-redemption arc. This would be the part that follows Tomoya's understandable depression and slightly less understandable alienation from Ushio right after Nagisa's death until his redemption in the wheat fields and their train journey home. This part of the show is great, and finally seeing Tomoya accepting his role as Ushio's father and coming to terms with the loss of Nagisa is possibly the emotional high point for the entire show. It is also very important that Tomoya find his new purpose to keep living in life, being Ushio, as it sets up the context within which my changes will be made. The post-redemption arc, which is where my changes will begin to be made, and I won't bury the lead here. My vision for the ending of After Story is that Tomoya and Ushio reconnect and become a whole family again, with Kyo Fujibayashi. With Tomoya already fully committing to being Ushio's father, and the only loose end left in the series being the vacuum created through Nagisa's death. Tomoya is left without a partner, and Ushio without a mother. Kyo fits the role better than any other heroine in the series, and what is already in the show itself sets things up perfectly. I've always thought of Kyo as the firm runner-up of Tomoya's harem from the first half of Clannad. Kyo and Tomoya play off each other very well as characters, and nothing about their interactions seemed forced or awkward. Even detractors of the series seem to like Kyo, and some point out that she seems like a better fit for Tomoya. This is arguable, but without getting sidetracked, this sets her up well as the new main heroine of After Story. In After Story itself, her reveal as Ushio's kindergarten teacher, offers a new organic way for her to be reintroduced into Tomoya's life. In the actual show, this isn't taken advantage of as much as such a great character as Kyo deserves, but my rewrite will rectify this injustice. Once Kyo is reintroduced as Ushio's teacher, she would take up a prominent role in the show. Kyo would essentially replace Fuko in her scenes in which she comes over to the house and bonds with Ushio. This would be easy to integrate into the context of her as a teacher. Perhaps she comes over to give Ushio some basic homework, or dropping off something she forgot at school. Maybe she would walk home with Ushio on a day that Tomoya was kept late at work, and in turn is invited by Tomoya to stay for dinner as a thank you. Even the ill-fated sports day that we never get in the show would be another significant occasion of crossing paths. Perhaps Tomoya finds himself training so hard, not only for his daughter, but also to impress his old friend. Of course, in the actual show, the reason Tomoya and Ushio never make it to the sports day is because Ushio becomes sick, presumably from the same illness that took her mother. Whatever reasons you may give as to why this makes sense, such as it being an inherited genetic disease, or the deadly dango theory, I believe that Ushio getting sick verges on tragedy porn, only saved from being so by magical orbs. Ushio getting sick and dying undercuts all the character development of Tomoya in overcoming his grief over the death of Nagisa and forging a new bond with his daughter. And even when they are magically resurrected, those great moments like the wheat field scene or the train ride are all lost to having never happened. Instead, my ending would be about a new beginning for a new family, imperfect and brought together by tragedy, but kept together through genuine bonds. It is easy to see how the bond between Kyo and Ushio could be made stronger over time, with the pair seeing each other almost every day at kindergarten. This likewise opens the door to many possible encounters between Kyo and Tomoya every day when he comes to collect her. I can only imagine that Tomoya seeing Kyo care and bond with his daughter would stir some feelings inside of him. For Kyo's part, it's quite obvious that she's always liked Tomoya, given the way she acts throughout Clannad and how she breaks down crying on losing to Nagisa. Seeing Tomoya overcome such a loss and still move forward, taking care of his daughter by himself, the daughter she spends time caring for as well, would inevitably see her old feelings resurface. When the end of the series approaches and the story needs to be concluded, I envision a time when all of these three characters are alone together, Tomoya and Kyo getting a little closer than usual, lost in the comfort of their ease of interaction and growing familiarity. Then Ushio would make some innocent comment about how they look happy together, or some other truth spoken from a child's mouth that forces an awkward moment of realization between the adults, revealing unspoken feelings. Kyo would run away from both her feelings and the situation, as she is wont to do. See the Kyo Another World episode or her arc in the visual novel. And Tomoya would likewise be left alone with his own thoughts. I could see Kyo going to a place of darkness and self-loathing, as she did in her Another World arc, where she is overcome with guilt over her bond with Ushio and feelings for Tomoya, feeling like she is stealing her dead friend's family. Tomoya would likewise feel guilty about the idea of betraying his dead love by replacing or moving on from Nagisa. If we wanted to keep some magic realism in the story and the parallel of the start and the end of the series involving the parting at the foothills with the sakura trees scene, then perhaps that location could be revisited in a dream in which a vision of Nagisa, who was always such a selfless character, fittingly encourages Tomoya to find happiness again. After this, Tomoya's newly formed resolve would see him seeking out Kyo, forcing an emotional confrontation in which they both reveal they love each other and want to be a family. The show could end with Tomoya and Kyo returning to Ushio and revealing their decision to her, who, also acting as an aspect of Nagisa, provides the final blessing necessary for them all to move forward together as a family. I feel an ending along these lines would be more emotionally complex and challenge the audience in a way beyond simply how much they can cry. The characters of Tomoya, Ushio, and Kyo would all be explored and developed even further, and there would be no need for magical orbs to save the day. I still remember reading a comment back in the day regarding the final episode of After Story, which simply stated that this doesn't happen for people in real life. The simple truth of that stuck with me and always gave me a gnawing feeling of unsatisfaction regarding the ending. What is a person who suffers such a tragedy in real life supposed to take from such an ending? No magical intervention is going to save the day. My ending would also be very much in keeping with Clannad's central theme of family, and would explore the theme further. In particular, the ideas of what makes family and if family is chosen for us or by us, first explored in the juxtaposition between Tomoya's relationship with his father and the Furukawa family, would be elaborated on by Tomoya's irreversible past with Nagisa and his potential future with Kyo. There would also be further dramatic tension and exploration of the ideas of honouring the past and moving on from it with the start of a new relationship. And the theme of happiness after tragedy would be more complete, with its extension from finding happiness with Ushio to not being alone forever by reconnecting with Kyo. It would still be a happy ending, if a little bittersweet of a conclusion. For someone who has been through such a tragedy, it would offer a realistic vision of hope, while recognizing that the pain will always remain. Not too much would have to be changed in the show in order to make this ending happen, with only roughly a quarter of After Story having to be changed significantly. Some might complain that this would deviate the story from the source material. However, the visual novel will always be there for those who want to play it, and the Clannad universe has always been accommodating of the idea of other worlds and paths. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not sure what my point is in discussing this. Maybe if the series ever gets remade or revisited, this could be an idea. Overall, it's just my reaction to an ending that I always found ultimately unsatisfying, even if it had me crying tears of joyous relief. What do you think? Could my idea of an ending be superior, or am I just indulging in fanfic tier wish fulfillment to get Tomoya and best girl Kyo together? Cheers.